Trent and Biz back with you for another edition of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Have we hit the low point for Iowa football? We will get into that. We'll also take a look back just a year ago, how different this football program was, and we'll make our picks along with Biz's Beat, all coming up on today's Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.
Our Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon, that's my buddy Biz, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen each and every day, available wherever you get podcasts. You can also watch our beautiful mugs on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. A big thank you to everybody for joining us there today. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Biz, you were hopeful last week, or you were trying to be positive.
I tried to be hopeful, yes.
Yeah. It didn't work out very well. 54-10. The offense, maybe as bad as it has ever looked. 6 turnovers in the game, less than 160 yards. 2 quarterbacks, neither could do the job, and the questions remain. Then on top of it, Kirk Ferentz in the post-game press conference, he gets questions that were asked that were difficult for him to answer about nepotism. Also, the reporter from Cleveland.com, who was asking, I think, some pretty fair questions, Doug Lamrie, he also got some quotes from Gary Barta, who told us the truth, everything that we knew, that he'll have to ask Kirk and see exactly what's going to happen here. We know he's not actually Brian's boss. So we have that. Then yesterday's press conference, which was another disaster. It was going all well and good until he had to throw some shade at a newspaper writer, and he's talking to media members. This is not me white knighting media members by any means, but just been a bad couple of days, certainly for Iowa football, and what's turning into a disaster of a season.
Yeah, the question is, have we hit rock bottom finally? I mean, I just keep thinking every week, offense can't get any worse, can it? And it does. And Kirk's comments can't get any worse, can they? But somehow they do. And so, if you close your eyes, Trent, and I told you that we were going to hold Ohio State's offense to 360 yards, 2.2 yards a carry, they were going to have 2 turnovers, and we'd get a defensive touchdown. What would you have guessed the score was going to be?
24-7?
Yeah, I had 24-10 wrote down, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for us to do all of those things and still lose 54-10 is incomprehensible. I mean, you talked about the 6 turnovers, Trent. It's not that we had 6 turnovers. It's that the majority of those turnovers were of the junior high variety. I mean, it reminded me I was an absolutely horrible junior high quarterback. The only reason I was the quarterback is because my older brother happened to be the starting varsity quarterback at the time. So they're like, he can probably be the quarterback also. I mean, I was terrible. I couldn't take a snap. I threw balls directly to the defense. I mean, it reminded me of my junior high football days. And, we talked about it a couple weeks ago that, we become kind of almost this national laughing stock. And it's kind of like when you drive by a car accident, you have to look at it. Well, 4.5 million people drove by the train wreck or car wreck that was happening on Saturday. And we put on quite a display for them because it just keeps getting worse and worse. I mean, like I said, where's the bottom? So I think you and I both listen to Solid Verbal every once in a while. And you ever hear the drive charts they do?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm going to do the drive chart for not just last week's game, Trent, but the last 2 weeks' games. This is the ultimate drive chart because I'm assuming you saw online. You know how many drives it's been since we've scored a touchdown?
I believe 28 offensive drives that Iowa has not scored a touchdown.
Yep, 28 of them. So here are your 28 drives. Are you ready to hear them in succession?
I'm sure these are going to be beauties.
Oh, it's great. Field goal, punt, 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 field goal, missed field goal, punt, 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 interception, end of game. That gets us to the end of Illinois game. Round 2, this is even better because this is gold. Interception, punt, fumble, fake punt return fail, field goal, punt, pick six, punt, fumble, interception, turnover on downs, punt, turnover on downs, fumble, and punt. So the creativity of how we did it against Ohio State was most impressive, Trent. Not once in the 15 drives did we have back-to-back drives end the same way. So we did it in a variety of ways. We interceptions, fumbles, turnover on downs, inexplicable fake punts. We found new and improved ways to fail. So when you look at those 28 drives, Trent, it's truly amazing. Only 3 of the 28 do we have more than 7 plays.
No way.
3 of 28. There was 1 drive of 9, 2 drives of 10. Everything else is 7 plays or less. You'd think somewhere in there there'd be a pass interference, something, an extended drive, just get lucky more often than that. But that's 10% of the drives. We had more than 7 plays in a drive. It gets better though. 10 of the 28 ended with either a turnover or a turnover on downs. We've talked about it in the past. One of the things that's saved our offense is we usually don't shoot ourselves in the foot. We usually let other teams do that. Well, we certainly haven't done that the last couple games. We've and Saturday was just a comedy of errors. But 11 of the 28 drives went for 0 yards or negative yards, and 18 of the 28, 64% of the time, the drives were for less than 10 yards or less. So 64% of the time, we might as well just come out and punt the ball right away because the odds are against us that we're either going to get a first down or not turn the ball over the last couple of games. So here's the last thing on it, Trent, before this is truly amazing. I added up 129 plays in those 2 games. Obviously, we haven't scored a touchdown in those 2, but not only that, the ball has never crossed the goal line. In 129 plays, we've never made an attempt. We never passed the ball into the end zone a single time in 129 plays. So I don't think Statboy can find this out, but I think there's ever been a time in modern college football where 2 straight games, a team didn't at least make an attempt, Hail Mary into the end zone,
right?
A fade pattern in the end zone, just an attempt of some sort. So we're working on 129 plays straight without even the ball accidentally crossing the goal line.
And that question was asked, I think, after the Illinois game. Is that something schematic? You're not throwing the ball into the end zone. And Kirk said, yeah, what a scheme. Not to throw the football into the end zone. And that's what we're dealing with here. There is so much going on. And you have the nepotism angle, which is a huge one and bothersome for a lot of people. You couple that with the worst offense in the country, and the numbers continue to get worse. You tweeted out after the game, down to 227 yards a game on average. Only 7 FBS teams have averaged less in the last 23 years. Not Power 5, all of FBS. We're talking about the New Mexico States of the world. We're talking about programs like that. Only 7 have averaged less yards than the 227 a game that Iowa is dealing with. It's untenable.
Well, and read the rest of that tweet, Trent. What's the combined record of those 7 teams?
7-67.
So it's a miracle that we somehow won 3 games. So and then you combine with the performance. Performance on the field's been awful, but then you combine the performance, I guess, whatever you call it, performance, comments, whatever, in the press conferences. I mean, like I said, when I talked about we finally hit rock bottom. I mean, what Kirk Ferentz did on Saturday and then again yesterday is just absurd. To get in a pissing match with the reporter is so ridiculous. And the only thing I can think, Trent, is there some possibility that he did it intentionally to try to take some pressure off the players? Because I don't get it. Like, the question he was asked was such a softball question. It was a question about basically team leadership and what has the team done to try to rally around each other. And he just went off the rails and decided to play the victim and act like somehow the questions about nepotism and whether Brian deserves to continue to coach this team are inappropriate. And it had to have been a planned answer. And I just keep racking my mind thinking, well, either one of 2 things. Either it's intentional and he's trying to take pressure off the players and put all the pressure on him so that they can, somehow focus on turning the corner here, or it's just incredibly stupid. And it's a guy who's just completely out of touch and has no clue, how the media views this program right now. And I don't know which one's the answer, but I sure hope it's the intentional angle.
Well, I definitely think it was intentional. And Kirk does not say anything without having a reason behind it. So it was something that he wanted to get out there. But I think your thought process probably is pretty good. Take away the pressure from the players, the quarterback questions that are going to linger this week, and change the narrative in a way. He didn't go about it the right way. I think he could have done it differently, and playing the victim card too on top of it. I mean, to have the media in today's environment, media is not exactly well liked. And I know it's not 100%, but it is a majority, certainly, of people that are on the media side on this one. That's difficult to do in this day and age, that the media actually gets the backing of people compared to Kirk Ferentz and what he's done for this program. It's slipping away quickly. And it's not just a slip up. It's just not one press conference. I think back to years ago, things weren't going well one season. Luke Meredith, the old AP writer, he got yelled at by Kirk at a press conference. Those kind of things have happened. But we're talking in and week out. Telling David Eicholt after the Illinois game, won 10 games last year. David was on the beat. And just some of the garbage that continues to be coming out with that. This is Kirk feeling different. He's always been petty. We know that. We'll take the time. We'll leave the timeouts there and take the pig with us. Pettiness has always been a part.
That's the fun petty, though. That's right. I want fun petty, not just
Well, you got to win. You got to win in order to make that fun petty. And when you're losing, that pettiness, it becomes vindictive and it becomes arrogance and it becomes kind of those things that are part of Kirk's personality, but they're looked at a whole lot different when you're losing football games and when you have the worst offense in the country and when your son is the one that is running that offense. And that's where we are. It's a lot of questions that remain, what it's going to be. Big picture. We get to this season, they miss a bowl game, be it 3-9, 4-8, 5-7, whatever. Do you anticipate a big change? Do you anticipate Kirk making the tough decisions? And not only, Brian, go find another job. It's not going to work. Or you're going to become the offensive line coach. But to really hand off the reins to the offense, to somebody that can move this offense into the 21st century. Look, you don't have to go 5 wide. We're not talking about calling up Mike Leach, one of his proteges, and what are we going to do? Illinois, they run out of shotgun over 70% of the time. But they're physical. They're tough. You can do that. Is Kirk willing to do that at 67 years of age?
The answer to that, I think, is maybe. I mean, do I think there's going to be change? Absolutely. Brian's gone. I mean, he's not going to be here next year. But do I think there's going to be wholesale changes? No. I mean, do I think you're going to see some schematic changes? Are you going to see some things different? Are you going to see some adjustments? Absolutely. But if you think somehow we're going to come out and look entirely different next year, you're fooling yourself. But yeah, there's going to be changes. I mean, but the fact of the matter, Trent, we talked, you talked about at the start. I mean, there's 3, whatever you want to call it, a triangle of ineptitude. There's what Kirk's doing, there's Brian, and then there's the third part of this, which, you talked about earlier, but the reporter from Cleveland.com, whatever, did his job and tracked down Gary Barta as well. And people that have listened to our podcast, the dozen people that have listened to us, for more than listened to us for years, know my general disdain for Gary Barta. I just don't think he's good at his job. I could go off on a rant. We'll stay on the rails here, Trent. But I mean, I give him credit. At least he just openly admitted that he has no role here. I mean, here's his quote. I've been with him, meaning Kirk. I've been with him, Kirk, for 17 years. And at the end of the year, he evaluates every part of the program, every staff member. And he goes on and says, that's his plan now, and I'm going to support it. Well, that's great, but that's not the rule here. You are the boss for Brian Ferentz. They specifically put it in writing that you were the one to evaluate Brian Ferentz. And at least he just openly admitted that he's not doing it.
Because we've known it.
I guess they're not bullshitting this, at least. I mean, who's the boss here? Yeah. It's not Gary Barta. It's Kirk Ferentz. I mean, so to get back, this is my roundabout way of getting back to your question. Is there going to be wholesale changes? No, because Kirk's the boss and he knows it. I mean, you and I talked about it a long time ago. The contract extension he got was just asinine. Not because, I have no issue with Kirk Ferentz sticking around and he can, at this point, I still think he can pick when he wants to leave. But who are they bidding against with that contract extension? Not a single person in the world. And not a single person. He's not leaving. He wasn't going to leave.
And you want to give him a contract extension through 2029. That's fine. but don't make everything guaranteed. That's fine.
Well, I get it. You got to have a contract extension so that people can't use it against you. You got to have it for at least 4 years or 5 years so that you can tell every recruit, I'm here through the time you're going to be here. But they already had it at 5. They gave him 2 extra years guaranteed for no reason. So, I mean, like I said, I made up the term, the triangle of ineptitude between Brian and Kirk and Gary right now is just, it's incomprehensible. And, like I said, I hope we're at the bottom finally, because I tried to be optimistic last week, but it's impossible to be optimistic about Iowa football right now. So we got nowhere to go but up, Trent. So let's turn the page and talk about hopefully going in the right direction.
Well, you said, is this the low point for Iowa football? A loss this week to this Northwestern team, it can get a little bit lower. We're going to take a look back at a year ago, though, and when things were a little bit brighter, when there was a lot more positivity to go around. We'll do that as we continue here. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Going out there, hiring people, it's always a difficult process. I have people that help me with my small business, and it is something that can be incredibly time-consuming. Well, LinkedIn Jobs can help you with that. Add your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience. You can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Right around the corner, we flip the calendar to 2023. If you're looking to make some new hires, jump on LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Trent Condon and Biz back with you on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast as we get ready for the matchup with Northwestern. But before that, a look to some better times. You put Stat Boy to work this week. What did you come up with, Biz?
Well, and you talked about a year ago, but actually it's kind of talking about, yes, where we were at a year ago, but where, best case scenario, where can we be a year from now also? Because I put him in an interesting kind of analysis because, as everybody knows, a little over a year ago, we were the number 2 team in the nation, and we were riding high, and we just beat Penn State from a national audience, and now basically we are a national laughingstock. But the one positive of that Ohio State game is we show without a doubt on one side of the ball, we can compete with everybody.
Yeah.
Ohio State, they got rolling there in the third quarter, but it wasn't because we were making defensive mistakes. It's because Stroud made a couple unbelievable passes and their wide receivers made a couple unbelievable catches, but he was thrown into tight windows. And, not once in the entire game could you say our defense just got manhandled by Ohio State. Right. We battled with them, and that's as good an offense as there is. So, let's look, Trent, at the best case scenario. And what I did is I had Stat Boy look into a remarkably similar situation, because when you look at this year's version of Iowa, the team that kind of came out of nowhere and is a top 10 team, who is that team, Trent? Undefeated Power
TCU?
5 team. TCU, exactly. Yeah. TCU is undefeated. They're kind of the nation's darling. They can compete with everybody on one side of the ball, which is the offensive side of the ball. They're a mess on defense. They give up a lot of points, but man, can they score, and they've got some athletes. So let's look at where TCU was 1 year ago. That was the assignment for Stat Boy. And it's pretty amazing. You remember where TCU was 1 year ago?
Well, they fired their longtime coach in Gary Patterson. They moved on. It was difficult. There's a statue of Gary Patterson. They're still toiling in the Mountain West or the American Athletic Conference, something like that, without Gary Patterson. And they said, we got to make a change.
Yeah. Gary Patterson's an absolute legend when it comes to TCU football. Like I said, they've already built a statue for him. He took them from Conference USA to Mountain West to the Big 12 and won conference titles in all 3 places. But a year ago, it's eerie, the similarities, Trent. A year ago, going into this weekend, the last game of October, I guess what TCU's record was?
3-4.
3-4. And They're going into a game against a bad Kansas State game, and there's an article that Stat Boy digs up that says nobody's working harder than Gary Patterson to get this turned around and get the Horned Frogs on track. And the article comes out earlier that week. Texas Tech had fired their coach, and it basically makes the comparison that TCU would never do that, and that they had no plans to make any changes mid-season, and that Gary Patterson was here to fix everything. Well, what happened that weekend? They go and get stomped by a mediocre Kansas State team. They dropped to 3-5, and 2 days later, Gary Patterson and TCU agree to part ways. Basically, he was given the option to finish the season out and become a glorified athletic director, and he said, "To hell with you, I'm leaving." So, but Statboy found some articles, and the article, you could basically take out Gary Patterson's name, put in Kirk Ferentz, and just write the article today. This is the quotes in the article. This is the day after he gets fired. Frankly, this is from the athletic director of TCU. Frankly, it's a place that was almost kind of unimaginable not too long ago. This program has very high expectations, and those expectations are because of Gary. That's the irony of it. He built this program up, and now we're simply not meeting those expectations. Mm-hmm. There you have it. I mean, that's pretty much what's going on right now. Is you've got a fan base that's revolting, and we're not living up to the expectations that Kirk Ferentz has built for himself, and that's the facts. And you fast forward 1 year, TCU is miraculously 7-0. They're ranked in the top 10. I mean, am I advocating that we need to fire Kirk Ferentz tomorrow and this is going to happen? Absolutely not. But when you look at the two, I mean, just eerily similar situations. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Both coaches, last year, Gary Patterson was the second longest tenured coach behind Kirk. They both coached 20 years at the same place. They both have an exact win total right now of 181 wins at their schools. Patterson had 113 conference wins. Kirk has 111. The fact of the matter is, Trent, it's really, really hard to coach any major college for a decade right now, much less 2 decades plus. I mean, at some point, I hope we get Kirk 3.0 and we get new Kirk, and somehow miraculously all the things you talked about, that we make these changes and things work out. But, I'm not optimistic for that right now. I mean, and you got to look at some point, what's best for this program and what's the best way to get the ship righted. And whether that's wholesale changes or minor changes, there has to be changes coming.
Difference TCU, it wasn't just last season though. His 2 years previous, he went 6-6 and 5-7 the 2 years. Kirk was 10-4 last year. And as we talked about, he's brought it up.
He reminds us of that occasionally.
The COVID year, they went 6-2 and ripped off 6 straight victories. This program has had a level of success. And because of that, I am not advocating that Kirk Ferentz be fired. I am not at that spot. He has earned the right to try to pull himself out of it. But as we talked about earlier, I just don't believe he's going to make the necessary changes to get them on the playing field to make that happen. And that's where my concern is. Yes, he deserves the chance. Will it work? I don't believe so.
Yeah, it's going to be, as an Iowa fan, every week is interesting. It's like a soap opera, but it's really going to be an interesting offseason to see. Like I said, I think changes are inevitable. It's just what extent those changes are going to come. Is it going to be wholesale changes, or is it going to be some minor tweaking? Because I just think at this point, minor tweaking, we're beyond that point. I mean, you can make the argument, Trent, and this is amazing. You can make the argument that right now we have the worst quarterback room in Power 5 football. We have the worst offensive line in Power 5 football, and we potentially have the worst wide receiver core in Power 5.
Not a good combo.
I mean,
and the worst offensive coordinator.
I mean, that's you don't make minor tweaks and fix those things. But the good news is, in the way of the world now, I mean, get in the transfer portal, you bring in some new blood. I mean, TCU is a perfect example. I mean, is TCU going to win the national championship? Obviously not. I mean, but they're where we were last year. They're in the hunt and undefeated halfway through the year, and we're 1 year away from doing that, and hopefully not that far away from being in that conversation again down the road.
Well, wrapping things up here,
We certainly are still in that conversation on one side of
Yes, that is for sure. Well, we talked about it last week, Biz. You're somebody that sweats. Got a story here. Pam hides in her office bathroom every 30 minutes. She has to dry off her armpits so no one can see the wet circles under her arms. Finally has her life back because of SweatBlock. She was able to fix her problem with SweatBlock. It gives you the confidence to wear what you want without embarrassing underarm sweat. The SweatBlock wipes were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show. I know you're a big fan of that. By firefighters. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try SweatBlock. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Biz, it's time for picks.
I don't know how, but I missed that episode of the Rachel Ray Show, Trent.
I know that's a big part of your afternoons, right? And hide away, go do some depositions, and then back quickly to watch Rachel Ray.
Or tape it. You can always just watch it later on at night. One way or another, I missed that episode.
Forward through the commercials. Time to make some picks. You won the week last week. You went 2-1. I was 1-2. So,
and my lock of the year dominated.
Yes, that was a great call. You nailed that one, and I had to family play that one and jump aboard as everybody was on Purdue last week and absolutely loved that angle. So this week, our national game is also a Big Ten game. It is Penn State against Ohio State. Big noon kickoff, though. This thing should be under the lights. Come on, I get it. It's TV. It's what pays the bills, but we've been there for a whiteout at night. It's an incredible experience, and it just feels like this game, it should always just be locked in for a night game. Unfortunately, it'll be a noon Eastern kickoff, 11 o'clock for us Central Time.
Yeah, and with the whiteout against Minnesota instead, which I think maybe Penn State sees the writing on the wall. I think the spread's 15 in this game. So
yeah,
I don't have a great feel for this one, but give me Ohio State. I just think, if there's such a thing as a bad 54-10 win, I think Ohio State coaches can go back and point out a lot of things they did wrong last week. And, really, I think we saw, I think Ohio State's about C game last Saturday, and they still beat us by 44. So I think they come out and blow the doors off Penn State. So give me the Buckeyes -15.
And I definitely agree with you in this spot. I think you're right. Ohio State did not play a great game. It's going to be easy for them to be motivated this week. The environment's not going to be the same here. And seeing Penn State against Michigan, that was a game that Penn State had the lead late in the first half. They were being absolutely obliterated. I think the first downs at that point were like 16-2. They had a pick six and one long run by Clifford. They're just not up to the task here. I'm going to lay it with you, and we'll both take the Buckeyes here this week. Pick number 2, your best bet of the week. I love the college slate this week. It was nearly impossible for me to pare things down, but we only make one pick, and our favorite pick of the week, I'm going with West Virginia. We just talked about TCU. Just some funky things always happen out there. Mountaineers looked terrible last week, but this is the time they'll get you. I'll grab the 8 points. Give me the Mountaineers.
You got to be the only person in the world that's on the West Virginia train right now, Trent. They got destroyed by Texas Tech. But I guess when everybody goes one direction, you go the other. That's the key. So, give me this is the world's biggest look-ahead game for the Tennessee Volunteers. They go to Georgia next week, and they're playing a legitimately good team in Kentucky with a legitimately good defense. I don't think Kentucky beats them, but it wouldn't shock me if they beat them. But give me +12. I think Tennessee is in for a dogfight, a 4-quarter battle with Kentucky. So give me the Wildcats +12.
Family play there. I'm jumping aboard. That was on my list for this week, and I'll definitely be betting that one. We wrap it up here with our BetOnline picks, and let's finish up with the Iowa game. The Hawkeyes currently up to a 12.5-point favorite in this matchup. Circa opened the line up. Iowa favored by 9. Their opening total was 31.5. I talked to their vice president of operations earlier today, Mike Palm, an Iowa native, and he said he thought 31.5 was too low. They're obviously taking a bunch of money on the over at this point, but it's up to 36 now, which is incredible to me. It feels like way too many points. I'm obviously going to grab them here. This offense still needs to answer questions. Northwestern right now, they have the 97th ranked defense in the country. That's worse than Nevada. They scored 27 there. I don't see them scoring 27 again. Give me Northwestern in the points and Kinnick.
Yeah, I agree with you, Trent. I mean, at this point, I'm not sure I'd be comfortable betting the Hawks -12.5 against West Des Moines Valley at this point. I mean, Iowa getting 12.5 against anybody is not a bet you're going to be comfortable making. So, given Fitzgerald's history, especially in Kinnick, of giving us fits, especially when they're big underdogs. I saw was that they've won 5 out of the last 6 when they're double-digit underdogs against us. So, it wouldn't shock me if we covered, because I think Northwestern is truly that bad. But I can't comfortably take the Hawks at 12.5 points. So give me Northwestern plus 12.5.
So we're both on Northwestern. We're both on Ohio State. Biz's best bet is Kentucky. And I got West Virginia for our best bets of the week. We got Biz's beat coming your way here in a moment. Want to say thank you for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the box score and the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Wrapping up here with you, Biz, and let's get into it once again. It is time for Biz's Beat.
Well, Biz's Beat is a shout out to our number one fan, Arkansas Allie. She turned me on to this. She's got kids that are in the band, and she sent me the YouTube video of the Ohio State band collaboration with the Elton John tribute last week. So if you haven't watched it, find it and watch it, Trent, because it is quite good. And sadly, it was probably the best thing that happened at the shoe last Saturday. So if there's one positive to take out of last Saturday's trip to Columbus, is that the band did one hell of a job at halftime. So go watch the Elton John tribute and enjoy the trombone play, because I believe that's what Arkansas Allie's son plays. He's a third generation tromboner.
I love that. And you're right. I did see it. I just saw kind of a sped up version of it, as you can see kind of all the moving parts and everything that they were doing there. Didn't hear the actual musical part, but it was sped up and it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. Not exactly a big band guy. We don't see the marching band much at halftime, do we?
No. I honestly can honestly say in all my years of Kinnick, I'm not sure I've ever watched the band more than like 10 seconds. So that's something I should probably change. We need to get more culture in our life, and maybe this week I will make a conscious effort to stay and watch the band.
Watch the band for a little bit. Well,
it might be more exciting than the game itself. So.
Very well could be. Speaking of, we talked about the point spread. Team total at Bet Rivers right now. Iowa, 24.5. I didn't put the mortgage on it, but I put a bundle for me on the under on that one. Again, short of defensive scores, 24.5. I just can't buy it.
Well, that falls in the same category as Iowa being favored by 12.5 over anybody. I mean, if you're betting Iowa to score more than 24 points against any team in the world right now, you're seeing something I'm not seeing. So, yeah, I'm not. You and I talk about it a lot. Vegas knows, and this seems like a Vegas knows game, because I can't understand why we're favored by 12, and I certainly can't understand why they think we're going to score more than 24. So, I guess lock it up for a 31-7 Iowa victory on Saturday.
That's probably the way it's going to play out. Well, let's hope that's the case. You got Floyd a boner this weekend. I'm staying away. Because the executive committee sucks so bad. I can't handle it anymore.
There's rumors that the executive committee got some new ideas for this week, Trent. You're going to hate them, so it's great. So.
Oh, boy. Thank God I'm not going to be there. Hopefully by year number 20, you guys will get things figured out and actually put on a good tournament for once.
Well, I did see that they put out the schedule today. So if we're going to take year 20 on the road, I see we can go to Penn State in late September.
That doesn't sound like a bad idea. Let's put it on the calendar now.
We should have led with that, Trent. Did you see the schedule?
Yeah, it was right when we were on the air, and I was opening the show yelling about Kirk. So
pretty clearly going to be a the last ever Big Ten West champs, right?
That'll be great, right?
Schedule's in our favor, Trent. So just burn the tapes for 2022 and get ready to get ready to win the last ever Big Ten West title next year.
Beautiful, yeah. The crossovers for next year. Penn State, Michigan State, and Rutgers. No Ohio State, no Michigan. Obviously, that's a big help there. You mentioned the road trip. So it's Utah State, Iowa State, Western Michigan in the non-conference. Iowa State on the road. They open up at Penn State, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota bye week, and then the Final Four. Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, Nebraska. Sounds like 4 in a row to wrap it up with a new offense. Fingers crossed.
Feels like 11-1 to me, Trent. So,
Look at you bringing that optimism.
See,
It's back. I can never shake it out of you.
Yeah. You got to end the podcast on a high note. So again, go buy your 2023 Big Ten West champ shirts now.
It'll be the final one of the 2 division format. Biz, we'll talk again next week. Enjoy Florida Boner. Rick sucks, and we will talk to you in a week's time.
All right, go Hawks.